Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our fireside chat with President Sosulski and Provost Harvey. My name is Skylar Kuhn, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Washington College. Before we begin, I'd like to review some housekeeping items. Both your cameras and microphones are turned off for this evening's event. For tonight's program, we'll start off with 3 opening questions, and then we'll open it up to your audience questions. Please utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to send in any questions that you have. If we're unable to answer all of your questions live tonight, your admissions counselor will be following up with you as long as we have a name associated with the question. And you're welcome to start sending in those questions whenever you think of them. So without further ado, you're welcome to grab your Washington College hot cocoa mug and get comfortable. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to turn it over now to our college president, Mike Sosulski.
Hey, Skylar, thank you so much. I've got my mug right here, and I note that it is a very generous mug, and it was a delight to receive this. And it's delightful to be with Provost Harvey tonight, and all of you who are with us virtually. Yeah, that's no kidding. Cheers. Cheers. Post-holidays, but hey, we're still celebrating. It is terrific to be with all of you, and we're really excited to hear your questions. And we're really excited that you are interested in Washington College. It is a really, truly spectacular institution. It's very distinctive, as I'm sure you know by now from all of your inquiries. And we're going to be really happy to delve into any particular questions that you may have about the college or what it's like to be here, to live in Chestertown, and to become a part of our community, which we very much hope you will choose to do. Before we go too much further, I would like to introduce to you my wonderful colleague, Provost Michael Harvey. Now, I want to make sure before we go further that everyone knows what a provost is. I was a provost for a long time, and one of the biggest questions and most frequent questions I ever got was, what is a provost actually? Well, the provost is the chief academic officer who works with the faculty, hires the faculty, and also probably the largest part of the academic staff on campus. He's responsible for supervising that academic experience for everyone. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to Provost Harvey.
Thank you, Mike. It is a pleasure to be here with you. It's a pleasure to be here in this historic house, Ensign Ringgold House, the president's house for Washington College. George Washington danced in this room. Those of you who visit Chestertown are going to be able to visit and see this room and the whole house filled with artifacts from the past of the country and from Chestertown. Yes, I am the provost. I'm here to talk about our academic program, to talk about some of the many ways that we help young people learn. And I think ultimately to just help you understand a little bit more, what is this small college on the eastern shore of Maryland, and why might this be the right place for you to come and spend 4 years learning, exploring, and growing. And it's a place I've worked at since 1998. I've got one of the best jobs in the world. I get to teach young people at an American liberal arts college in the state I grew up in, Maryland. It's a great place, and I'm really looking forward to helping you learn a little bit about it over this the rest of this time. Skylar, back to you.
Great, thank you. I wanted to take a moment to compliment that roaring fire you have behind you. It looks great. So we're going to get into those 3 opening questions that I mentioned. I do see some questions coming in our Q&A box already, so that's great. Keep sending those in. But we're going to start with these 3. So the first question I have for both of you is, how has Washington College handled the current climate, both in the immediate and preparing for the long term?
Great, thanks for the question, Skylar. And there are lots of aspects to the question about climate. The first one I will answer is about the big snowstorm that we just got through. It was fascinating to see 6 inches of snow come down, turn to rain, and then all be washed away within about a 12-hour period. But the weather here on the Eastern Shore is actually really lovely, and we've enjoyed being here. To more serious aspects of climate, though, it's no surprise that one of the most distinctive elements that's kind of conditioned the way we've had to live and work and study over the last couple of years has been the COVID-19 pandemic. And the college has had various responses to the pandemic, and I think they've all been very responsible ones. Initially, when in the spring of 2020, when it became clear that we were in the throes of a global pandemic, Washington College did what every other responsible institution did, which was to send folks home, to quarantine at home and make sure that they were isolated and as protected as they could be from the threat of the pandemic. Over the course of the next year, the college was, again, very, very cautious with the health and safety of its community. And so there was virtual learning in the fall, and then some limited on-campus opportunity in the spring of 21 for students to be resident on campus, but most of the learning was virtual. Since that time, we have been in person. So in this past fall, we've been in person, and we did it with extraordinary levels of success. We really only had a handful of positive COVID cases on campus. So it was a really highly successful semester. And we did it, of course, taking all the normal precautions that you would hope to take. So we had masking, but we went on with courses on campus, in the physical classrooms, in the laboratories, and in the field. And we also had a very high rate of compliance with vaccination. It was very gratifying to see how the community responded to that. And so all of those things came together in a really positive and felicitous way to make us able to have a really terrific fall semester. And so one of the things that we have done is we have asked everyone to get the booster shot before they come back for the spring semester. And so we already have a very high compliance rate with that. And so I know that we're going to be set up for, again, what we hope will be a very successful spring semester, though we know that the Omicron variant is a different animal than what we were dealing with before. So we expect we'll see a little more positivity, but I feel very, very confident that we are well equipped to manage what comes our way and to preserve that quality and the nature of a fully in-person and on-campus spring semester. What would you like to say about the climate?
As you can imagine, we've tried really hard to balance an absolute top priority for the safety of everybody here, young people, the people who work here, the families of the people who work here, the community we're a part of. We've worked very hard to balance safety for those people with a rich learning experience for students. And I would say that, you know, the 115 or so full-time faculty who work at the college have learned a lot, and all the people who support them across the college, we've learned a lot about how to make safe choices ourselves, how to design rich educational experiences in different modalities. We've been able to continue athletics. We've been able to continue students interacting. We've been able to continue what is one of the most important things for the college, which is not the big lecture hall, but the opportunity for you, the individual student, to sit and talk with an individual professor about a question you have, a problem you have, an idea you have, a research project maybe that you might be able to participate in. And we're really proud of the fact we've been able to continue that focus on individualized student learning. Sometimes meetings happen via Zoom. We've been really pleased this past fall to be able to go back to doing this in person. And we are very happy continuing down that path this spring. As I say, we've learned a lot. Our students have been incredible. We have close to 100% vaccination among students, almost as high a level among faculty and staff. And that's really allowed us. And by the way, that doesn't happen because of rules. That doesn't happen, with all due respect, because of presidents or provosts. That happens because of just the members of the community who care for each other, who have empathy for each other, and who understand that the choices we make individually have an impact on other people. In that funny way, COVID has been a remarkable opportunity for us to kind of practice the values we talk about. This is a great place for an individual person to come, but not because you'll be alone. You'll be part of a community. And we have not just tried, we have kept that community safe throughout COVID. We're going to continue to keep that community safe. And I'm really proud of the fact that while doing that, we're delivering great learning for hundreds and hundreds of wonderful young people.
Great, thank you. And we will move on to our second question for the night. In these times, what makes a liberal arts education, specifically a Washington College liberal arts education, valuable?
Such a great question. And I think we have a number of different answers to that question. I'll start by giving the answer that I think is really the most salient. And that is that a liberal arts education provides not just a well-rounded education. It provides real, genuine, multifaceted education that is the ideal preparation in my mind for the kind of world that's facing people as they come of age today. We've all been looking at the headlines, and we all know what the speed of the 21st century feels like, right? Particularly as we think about technological change. Seems like the moment you update your phone, it's time to do it again, or you're updating some other device that you've got. Technology is moving very, very quickly. And the technology changes that are so rapid and so vital to the well-being of our economy, they're also shaping the kind of reality that we're living in and that young people will be coming of age in and seeking jobs and seeking careers, seeking their futures. And given the fact that the pace of change is so quick, it's very difficult to imagine preparing for a specific way of being in the world. Just one narrow sort of focus. The liberal arts approach, by definition, brings all sorts of knowledge to you from different ways of understanding the world, from science to social science, humanities, and the arts. They're all combined. And when you think about the flexibility and the nimbleness of mind that's going to be important to adapt to the rapid changes of the working world, but just life in general, as technology continues to shape our experience. I can't think of a better preparation than the liberal arts, which has created flexible minds and trained folks to learn how to approach all sorts of complicated problems from different perspectives, from a disciplinary perspective. That's kind of the way I tend to think about the value of the liberal arts. And so I would say the liberal arts is not only the best form of education that I can imagine for the future, it's particularly well tailored to the moment in which we find ourselves living.
Oh, by the way, I've got my mask around my on my lanyard here. And ordinarily we'd be masked up and talking, but we figured Zoom is a little difficult, so we've taken off the mask. We're fully vaxxed, boosted. We've taken off the masks to be able to engage with you a little bit more. I guess for me, if we're going to talk about the liberal arts, let's start with, well, what are the liberal arts? And there's different definitions. For me, one great definition is you get to ask the questions. A different model would be a course that is carefully planned by someone, and they say, if you take this class, you will become an expert in the subject as I have defined it and shaped it. And that's great. That's a lot of great education. And don't get me wrong, at the heart of liberal arts, there's also lots of reading, careful study. We've got a terrific chemistry department, a great psychology department, great anthropology department, great English. I mean, we've got 26 different academic majors. You can do extraordinary things across all of them. But at the heart of every one of them is you, the young person with a question, with a wonder, with an idea. And the kind of education we build gives you space to explore your own ideas. I've been teaching here again, as I think I said, since 1998, so almost a quarter century. And I have so much pride when I brought a student into contact with some piece of research or a famous old text on organizational behavior and leadership. Those are the things that I study. And then they had a new idea. And them having the new idea, that's really the heart of the liberal arts. When you think for yourself, ask for yourself. And then part of that is courage. You don't just keep it inside, you share it with other people. Because by gum, if other people need to hear your ideas. So that's the other part of the liberal arts approach to education. We create space for young people to learn from each other. We try to hire fantastic people to teach our young people, but we also make sure they understand, create space for those young people to do their own exploration. And a lot of our work is helping you go beyond where we're at. And that happens a lot. And it's a sign that we put a lot of work into helping our young people grow.
Thank you. And we have just one final opening question before we open it up to our audience questions. And this is one that I did see come in through the Q&A too. So we have people listening at home who are wondering this. This last question is, what differentiates Washington College from other small liberal arts colleges? So we talked a little bit more about what liberal arts is, but what differentiates us from those other colleges?
Well, that's a great question. I think, again, there are lots of good answers to that question. I'll start with one, and maybe we can just trade back and forth. But the first one that comes to mind is just how real the experiential learning opportunities are at Washington College. So much learning takes place here, not just in the classroom. That's a really important part. And hey, the classroom is an important experience. I don't want to diminish that at all, but so much learning takes place outside of the classroom. And we have so many terrific opportunities to learn in a hands-on way in our community, in the broader Chesapeake region, and in our city. And there are just so many great opportunities that way. And I'm sure that you've begun to explore some of those already. What else would you say? How would you respond to that, Provost Harvey?
One remarkable area that is going to see a lot of growth in the next 4 years, the time that you'd be here, is business management. We've gotten a $5 million gift, which is 100% focused on being translated into increasing student learning opportunities. That's going to allow us to offer new courses in areas like marketing and entrepreneurship. It's going to create new research opportunities, the kind of experiential learning that the president is speaking about. So that's clearly one area to focus on. If you're sitting here listening and you love poetry, you've got to meet James Hall and some of our other English professors while you're thinking about what college to go to. If you're interested in chemistry, you got to meet young Sarah Arredondo, who does computational chemistry. Computers have gotten so strong that you can model chemical reactions in computers, and that's what she does. And those are tremendously, tremendously marketable skills. I could name lots of faculty that I'm passionate about, but I urge you, find out in an area you're interested, whether there's a professor you can meet, reach out to that professor. We'll get back to you, and you will find an opportunity for an individual conversation with an amazing faculty member in the area that you care about. I don't know if you want to add anything more to that.
I'd be happy to. Sorry, Skylar, are you ready to?
No, that's okay. I know there's so much to say about this, so you're welcome to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I won't keep going on and on forever, but I'm very excited about so many of the things. So I'm relatively new to the college. I joined the college in late August of this past year, and so it's really just been a tremendous journey of discovery for me over the last 5 months. And one of the things, there's so many things that have been excited to discover here, but as Provost Harvey was saying, a truly passionate faculty that are real teacher scholars. You'll find that if you come here to study, you'll be working with some of the world's best experts in their field who are really engaged in ongoing discovery in research and science, as well as passionate teachers. They care just as much about your success in the classroom as they do about the collaborations that they're experiencing professionally in their research areas. That's really powerful, and that can't be said of every place. And as getting back to the experiential and hands-on piece of it, surrounding and enhancing the really strong academic core of the experience at Washington College are the 3 centers of excellence that I'm sure you have already read about. James Hall was just referenced. He's the director of the Rosa O'Neill Literary House. Tremendous opportunities to expand your writing, both in creative ways and in other ways. We've also got the Center for Environment and Society, which offers the Chesapeake semester. It also offers all kinds of wonderful externships and internship opportunities for students to really do hands-on learning. And lastly, the Starr Center for the American Experience. Once again, another place that offers tremendous learning opportunities beyond what you're doing in the classroom. Wonderful internships and history-oriented projects that really help people dig into the history of our region and our nation. And these are just really unprecedented things. I've never seen a college of our size so focused on the undergraduate experience with these kind of special opportunities. It truly is a unique set of things. I'll stop there. Now, Skylar.
Wonderful, thank you. So we are going to open it up to those audience questions. This first one is for President Sosulski. So it says, I'm a member of the incoming class of 2026. First, I just wanted to say thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. President Sosulski, as you come up on your first 6 months at Washington College, what has surprised you most? And what do you see as your biggest goal for 2022?
Really good questions. Well, there have been so many surprises, and they've all been really delightful ones. One of the biggest surprises, I did my homework. I learned as much as I could about Washington College, just like you're doing, before I decided to join. But one of the things that I kind of knew, but you don't know it until you really get on campus and feel it, was what a wonderful spirit the college has around athletics and the arts. Both of those things are really strong here. We have gorgeous facilities for the arts. Our recital hall is one of the most beautiful recital halls that I've ever seen on a small liberal arts college campus. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, I'll bet you there's some images online. Hotchkiss Recital Hall, absolutely beautiful. And we offer all kinds of wonderful music programs for those who both want to study and those who just want to play and experience it. But the fine arts are alive and well here. We had some really surprising, wonderful events happen in our athletics in the fall too. For example, the men's soccer team won its very first ever conference championship in the Centennial Conference. And for the second time in the history of our institution, we went to the NCAA postseason tournament and did incredibly well. The soccer team went all the way to the Sweet 16 round, where they lost on, I will just tell you, this is my opinion, I'm not an expert, but I think they lost on a very lucky goal to the eventual national champions, Tufts. The last year's defending national champions. But it was delightful. And one of the things that was so great about it was the whole college really just kind of rallied around this. I think part of it had to do with having been away during a pandemic and having something so fun like that to kind of celebrate together. But those things have been surprisingly wonderful. And what's been great about it, and it has been, they all just really affirm what a delightful community we have. People here really value that sense of community, and there are lots of ways to kind of find your place in that community. And it's been wonderful. Now, the second half of the question was, what's the biggest goal for 22? Wow, well, there's so many goals in 22, I have to say. I think one of the most important goals that I have for 22 is, and this will take us into some very serious, but I think very important territory here. One of the things that the community has been working on very, very carefully together over the past year is a strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion for our college. And the community it was a wonderful process. So it began with a committee, lots of listening sessions, plenty of opportunity for everyone in our community to give input and talk about what our need areas are, where we need to get better, and where our strengths are as well. It was a top to bottom assessment, and it ended with all kinds of focus groups that took place in the fall semester, where the draft plan was shared out with different members of our community all across that community, and feedback was brought on board. Final revisions were made, and on December 14th, the plan was delivered to me. And since that time, my senior team, including the provost and the dean of students and lots of other folks, Dr. Hunter, the vice president for enrollment, who you may have met, all of us together are working on the plan, looking for opportunities to implement it. And we all know, we all believe deeply, and we understand deeply that as a college, one of our most important commitments is to be the most equitable and inclusive space that we possibly can be. We want everyone who comes to this college to be successful. And so we know we have work to do. We have a wonderful set of recommendations to work with. And I'm looking forward in 22 to implementing those. I know it's going to be a very important thing for the health and well-being of our community, and it will safeguard that community as a truly inclusive place for all. And I'm excited about that work.
Thank you. So we can move on to our next question, which is more about this event. So it says, what gave you the idea to do a fireside chat? I think it's a very homey idea. And then this second part might be a question for you, Provost Harvey. It asks, do you do similar things with students? So do you or do any other professors do anything like this with their students?
So who's going to field the fireside chat question? I can happily field it. One of the things that made this such a great idea is the fact that this home, the Hinson Ringgold House, as Provost Harvey shared with you earlier, it's a really historic place. It is absolutely beautiful. And it is the residence of the president, but I really feel like it's a place to be shared. And so we host parties and events and receptions here whenever the pandemic lets us do it. We've had to really slow down with that kind of thing because it's difficult to bring people together indoors. But when we're able to do so, it's a terrific place to highlight and showcase. And just the room that you're seeing in the background here, as you've heard already, George Washington danced here. He attended a number of parties here. Patrick Henry was a guest in this house. So was Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. And so it's a really historic and wonderful place to get together. And hey, it's winter. Why wouldn't we want to put on a fire on one of the coldest weeks of the year and just share that kind of warmth with you? So I think that answers that question.
I'll turn it around and think about you young people watching this. This has been a really tough couple of years, and for totally understandable reasons. You've missed out on a lot of aspects of learning. Learning is more than Zoom. School is more than a virtual interaction with other students. And yeah, right now we're struggling with Omicron and masks, and you know, tomorrow we're having a big meeting of our CPG group, contingency planning group, to figure out what's the plan for the spring. But I think what we all expect is that the year you folks are thinking about starting in college, the fall of 2022 and the spring of 2023, is going to be a really rich year of in-person experiences. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of professors having cocoa and having brownies with their students and watching movies or having discussions. There's going to be a lot of interaction beyond the classroom. Groups of students, student clubs, faculty members, research going on. We are going to make a very strong commitment to rich in-person interaction to kind of remind ourselves that learning happens everywhere. President Sosulski mentioned the soccer team. You know, I drove up to New Jersey to watch one of the playoff games, and I was just struck by the fact that I knew some of those students from classes I taught them in a freshman seminar. And we had these great conversations about Dante and old texts, and now they're, now they're, saving goals in the NCAA playoffs. And the funny thing is, I loved the course that I taught those students, but they were undoubtedly learning maybe even more from being on the soccer team. That's one of the things that I love about the college. And Mike, the president, alluded to this. Learning happens everywhere here. Our coaches are part of learning. The people in the dining hall are part of learning. Our students don't just learn from syllabi and in hour-long class allotments, but all throughout the day. And one of my favorite stories about Washington College happened to me on my first day of employment, August of 1998. I was a brand new professor, went to the dining hall, got a tray, sat down, hadn't been sitting for more than 2 minutes before a student showed up, and I'll never forget his name. And he said, "Hey, you're new here. Mind if I sit with you?" And that was a young man named Roland Fornoff, an undergraduate, voluntarily going and talking to a professor. And I've experienced that, and I've seen that from Washington College students ever since. We care about each other. So yeah, when I teach, I like to designate a movie and brownie night. I make brownies for my students. And lots of my colleagues do the same kind of stuff. And yes, we'll have a lot of that, especially next year, which I have a feeling will be a very rich year of in-person learning in all kinds of ways.
Thank you. All right, so this next question is for both of you. It asks, what are your favorite places on and off campus?
I like the Lila Hinson Pavilion down at Wilmer Park by the Chester River. It's actually not that far over here. It's a beautiful space in the park, and the park is owned by the town. A graduate of the college paid for this lovely little pavilion. Families, when you come and visit campus, make sure you make it down to the river. Make sure you make it down to Wilmer Park. It's a great place to sit. If it's inclement weather, you can sit in a pavilion. If it's a nice day, you can walk on the park. You can see the geese and the ducks and the river. This is really an amazing place we live in. And that riverfront there, if you look to your right, if you look a little bit west, you'll see one of the most amazing buildings on campus, Siemens Griswold. You'll see the beautiful boathouse. We've got some really, really great water-based sports here as part of varsity athletics. So I'd say our riverfront campus might be my current favorite space.
So was that your, so just gotta ask follow up here. Was that your on or your off campus favorite space?
I guess I cheated because it's both.
It's both. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to fully answer the prompt because I'm just a really good student. So I'm going to say my favorite on-campus spot. It's a tricky question because we have campuses in multiple places, right? So we have our traditional campus on Washington Avenue, but then we have the riverfront campus, which is what you were referring to a little while ago, which is actually stunningly spectacular. But then we also have the River and Fields campus, which I'm going to call it off campus because it's off the main campus. And I think that's my favorite place off campus because it's wild, truly wild, right? And it's wild and it's cultivated, it's experimental. It's a terrific place. It's expansive and it's a terrific place to do some of that experiential learning that I was talking about. I was down to the bird banding station yesterday, which is just a terrific place. And we are in the process of building a new and expanded bird banding station down there. So we're engaged in some really important research on avian migration, and that's exciting. But there's all kinds of cool things going on down there, including an experimental farm that we're developing, and all kinds of neat things. So that's probably my favorite place that's off the main campus. And on the main campus, I'm going to say there's too many to mention, but right now, what I'll say is most of the year, there's a beautiful courtyard right outside the Miller Library. And it has a huge, gorgeous canopy of old trees. And it is one of the favorite places for students to study. There are tables, wooden tables and chairs out there. And it's just a great place to either study or just meet with your friends, grab some food at the grab and go and just have your lunch out there. It's gorgeous. And it just feels like it's sort of a separate place apart that's kind of restful and quiet, even though it's right in the heart of campus. So that's kind of my favorite on-campus place.
Great, thank you. Okay, so for this next question, I'm going to take this one just because it's geared a little bit more towards admissions. So this asks, will everyone automatically be considered to become a presidential fellow? So yes, this is something that admissions considers students for as we read applications. Students who submit their application by December 1st do have priority consideration for this. So admissions will read applications and then they'll nominate students who can then apply to become a presidential fellow. This next question is for the both of you. So it asks, what is the average class size of a student and how does that class size benefit the students?
That sounds very much like a provost question because it's about academic courses.
Average class size is around 10, but of course that it varies from maybe as high as 27 or 28, and maybe an introductory psychology class, to first year seminars where we might have 15 students, to upper level seminars where it might be 4 or 5 or 6 students. But on balance, I think about 10 students in a class is kind of a good rule of thumb. Our classes allow for much more than lecture. I think that's clear, right? And lecture is one good way to learn certain kinds of information, lecture and PowerPoints and printed notes and textbooks. But there's a huge dimension of learning that comes from active engagement. Earlier, I talked about the liberal arts and about you. For me, the definition is you get to ask the questions. And a small class shows that we're really serious about that, right? It'd be kind of a silly school if we bragged about being a liberal arts college and then our average class size was 30 students. In small classes, students get to know each other. You know, it's not just about having time to speak, it's also about getting to know people. And in a lot of big classes, I've learned students can go a whole semester and everybody in the class doesn't learn all their names. It's very important to me when I teach that my students, not only obviously do I know my students' names, but everybody learns each other's names. And just starting from that, you have much more room to talk to people, to listen to people, to learn from people, to work with people. So the small class size lets us have a highly individualized instruction. And of course, one of the things that brings the average down, we even have independent study courses. And so, for example, as a senior, you'll write a senior capstone, a year-long project. You work closely with one professor. You got to pick the question. You do the research. The professor helps you, but it's your work. That's kind of the apotheosis of our commitment to individualized learning. That's what the small classes let us provide to students from day one.
Thank you. Okay, so this next question says, how does Washington College connect with the surrounding area? Do the students add to the Chestertown community? I like this one. Would anyone like to start with this?
Well, we've got student teachers in the public schools in Kent County and Queen Anne's County. That means that's a really important part of their certification as undergraduates to be school teachers in the state of Maryland. We've got many students who are involved in the local community, fighting for equitable housing, fighting for diversity in Kent County. We've got student journalism interns who intern at the local newspaper every summer. We've one of our centers of excellence, the Star Center, supports community historians working with members of the community to sort of uncover the story of folks in Kent County, especially those who were historically neglected or marginalized. And we have many student interns who end up going into local archives and helping uncover really amazing stories about Kent County. Last year, we found out about a trove of documents going back to the 18th century regarding slavery, all in this family's attic, a little south of here. And we were able to procure that collection and donate it to a local organization where it's going to be part of the historical record of the whole community. And our faculty, our staff, and our students will continue to work to find the stories in that collection, to share those stories, and to make sure that the lessons of the past kind of help us build a more equitable future. So that's one of the things we do. On the environmental side, we're out there doing research in the marshlands and in the rivers. And a lot of those projects involve undergraduate students going out and wading and, measuring oyster beds and measuring the health of wetlands down at the RAPC campus. So we're connected in the community in a whole bunch of ways, kind of across the curriculum.
That's a great way to frame it. And, I've also seen lots of our students working in town. You'll go into any of our local businesses and I'll see students all the time who have part-time jobs, who are volunteering. So there's really a rich environment for things to do outside of your kind of just your mainline kind of studies.
Definitely. Thank you. This question is for Provost Harvey. So it asks, how can I set up a meeting with a professor? So as a current student, how would a current student set up a meeting with a professor?
Anybody here will point you in that direction. We can all be Roland Fornoff. We can all be the person who talks with you. So you can find me on the college website, Michael Harvey, mharvey2. If you email me or if you talk to your friendly admissions counselor, they can point you in my direction. I'll be very happy to talk a bit with you, find out your area of interest, and point you in the direction of the right department chair or the right professor. So that's one way to do it. But I also can say you don't have to get permission from me. You can just go to the website, play around, see which department. Every department webpage lists the faculty. Every one of those faculty has contact information. And we only hire people who like getting emails from aspiring young anthropologists or biologists or business leaders. So feel free to reach out to people directly and feel free to propose that, hey, do you have time for a conversation? Could we do a Zoom? Is there any chance I could come and see a class? One of the most valuable things you can do is to go and see an actual class. And we routinely allow that. Skylar and her Crackerjack admission staff can help make that happen. There are a few better things. I mean, your families are going to be spending a lot, whether you come to Washington College or some other school, you're about to spend a lot of money for 4 very important years. It makes sense to sort of see, so how does it actually happen on a random Wednesday, right? That guy seemed nice, but what happens when the lights are off and they're not on, what happens when they're just regular old teaching? I think if you come, you'll be amazed at how much care goes into those learning experiences and how much real empathy you're going to see in those learning spaces among the students and between the students and the faculty. So if you get lost, contact me, but Skylar, other admissions folks, or just the good old website can help you track down the professors you want to talk to.
All right. So I know we've talked a little bit about the 3 signature centers. You both have mentioned a couple already, but this question asks, can you be involved in more than one of the signature centers?
Absolutely. No, in fact, I would highly encourage it. I mean, that really would, if a student were to do that, that really would be living out the dream of the liberal arts in so many ways, because the centers of excellence all are connected with academic disciplines and departments that come from various, sort of various divisions in academia. And so having those kind of diverse experiences, that would be really wonderful. In fact, we should probably create some kind of a program that really rewards that, because that would be some high achievement.
Thank you. Okay, this next question says, what are the internship possibilities like? So are there any particular internships that you want to highlight? How do students get access to internships?
About 75% of our students report doing an internship during their time here. I think the real number is higher because we don't necessarily find out about all the internships. There are so many different internship experiences. Some of them are highly competitive, our signature internships. The centers we've talking about have sent students on internships to the Smithsonian, to the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, all kinds of amazing placements. There's also a lot of other kinds of internships. There's even on-campus internships. I'd say the best internship is the one that's right for you. And one of the strategic search things you should probably do while you're thinking about colleges is dig into the different colleges' career centers. We have a fantastic career center that brings together a lot of internship opportunities. And but we can't do all the work. I think the internship starts with a student going to the career center and letting them know, I'm interested, what's available. And it's one of these situations where there are hundreds of opportunities. I guess the ones that I'm most interested in, and this goes back to kind of what I'm looking forward to, and I keep thinking of next year as our post-COVID year, I really want to expand our international internships. International education has had to really kind of shrink down over the past couple of years. And I think that's really sad. I think it's not great for young people. I think one of the most powerful ways to grow is to study abroad. So if I were a 17-year-old thinking about college right now, I'd very much want to find out what are the international internship opportunities I might be able to take advantage of wherever I go. And we have a lot of them.
Hey, and as long as we're talking about the Career Center and the opportunity for internships, let me just put in a plug for another thing that's truly distinctive about Washington College. We have a tremendous, well-staffed Career Center. And so our students are extraordinarily well prepared for whatever comes next after graduation. Not only do we have a very high graduation rate, but all of those graduates are well prepared. Let me give you an example. Every year, the Career Center conducts what we call the First Destination Survey. And it's really a survey that's just about that. We want to know where our graduates are 6 to 9 months after graduating and what they're doing with their lives. And we have a very high rate of getting knowledge about each graduate. And so just to give you an example of what kind of work the Career Center does with students to prepare them, the class of 2020, we now know, graduated during the pandemic, during a time of great uncertainty, and yet 90% of that graduating class are employed in the field of their choosing. So not waiting tables, not at Starbucks, but really working in a field that's career oriented for them. Either that, or they are in graduate school. A large number of them are in graduate school, or they are serving in the military, volunteering full-time, like for the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, or taking an intentional gap year. That's 90% of the graduating class of 20. So to me, that's the proof in the pudding right there, that Washington College experience is an incredibly powerful one that prepares students very well. And the Career Center is doing an amazing job at making sure that the initial launch after graduation is a really successful one.
Thank you. All right, this next question says, what is the social scene like? I'm curious about the inclusiveness and diversity of clubs and organizations on campus.
A bit more than 20% of our student body are students of color. And there is a wide diversity of clubs. We have many, many different student clubs. So there are many different experiences and activities, a rich tapestry that students can participate in. I think in terms of diversity, as the president said, it's an area that historically this college was not strong in. And one of the reasons to study the liberal arts is because history does so much to shape the world we live in. We're really working hard to build a juster and more inclusive community that we're part of, story of the college. That work continues. I'm very proud of what we've done so far. But I think especially during this time of COVID and things going virtual, it's been a little bit harder to see on campus the different ways that we're weaving together and the kind of the diverse, rich experiences folks have. I'll be eager to see how that looks going forward, starting on Monday when the semester starts.
Can I add one quick thing to that? To all the good things that Provost Harvey's just said. One thing that's really impressive to me is how strong our student government organization is. We have, I've seen and visited a lot of different colleges and universities, and we have a very serious, very engaged student government association, and they are they take great leadership on campus. They're serious about their work, but they also have a lot of fun, and they're getting great experiences doing that work. So I feel like our student government president, Kat DeSantis, for example, is a really terrific partner in helping us make great decisions about what's good for the college moving forward, and that's a really special thing.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question is, what are your academic supports and what disability resources do you have?
It's a great question. It's a really important part of the student experience. We have an Office of Academic Skills led by the great Hillary Bateman. We have an Office of Quantitative Skills. Jesse Andrews runs it. We have a Writing Center. Rachel Rodriguez runs it. These are people so dedicated to helping every student learn and making sure that what you need to learn is accessible to you. Our faculty have the same commitment. That's one of the other advantages. I could have spoken about the question back on small classes. Small classes allow us to really customize learning experiences for students. So this is actually an area that we began by talking about what does a provost do. One of the big things that I spend my time thinking about is, are we being equitable enough? Do we have enough access for different kinds of students, different kinds of learners? Are we doing what it takes to help everybody succeed and learn? And I really take a lot of pride in working at a college where those are questions we ask every day, and in our strategic thinking, and in the money we spend, and in the attention we put. It's really important to us to deliver in terms of accessibility for all students.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question is about things to do on weekends. So it asks, do most students stay on campus on weekends? If so, are there things to do?
Good question. So yes, there are lots of things to do on campus, and my impression is that students are here on campus and really enjoying themselves. One of the payoffs of having so many good student organizations is that they plan terrific events, and so there seems to always be a concert, a movie, something fun going on campus, and then there are things in town that students want to partake in. One of the neat things about being in a historic town with a colonial past like ours is that there are all kinds of festivals. So we've got a great Dickens festival in December. We've got a maritime festival it's October, isn't it? When the downrigging festival takes place, right? And that comes with all kinds of music and food. It's like a big carnival. So that happens over a weekend. And I haven't experienced this yet because it'll be my first time. But we've got a tea party festival that's coming up. Is that in June? Is that when that's
Memorial Day weekend?
Around Memorial Day, right? Okay. So that's also another great opportunity to kind of get out and experience all kinds of cool things in the town.
But this is a really important question, and I think as much as I love Washington College, you have to pick a school that's right for you. And Washington College is many things, but it's not a city college. And some of you folks listening to this are thinking, thank goodness I don't want a city, I want a town, I want a community where I can walk around and really feel like I get to know everybody. But some of you listening, like my daughter, my kids grew up here in King County, are thinking, I am a city person. And if to the extent that you're confident that you need the stimulation of a large cosmopolitan center, as great as Chestertown is, that's not what it is. And it's a perfectly good basis upon which to choose a school. So there's probably people watching this webinar thinking, I love the college, but I need to go to a city. So I'm going to try to find a city version of Washington College. But there's some folks probably watching thinking that might be too much for me or this town. And if you're uncertain, by gosh, come and see the town. It's vibrant. There's a million things going on. There's music in Chestertown. There's music a few miles away. There's activities on campus, arts, athletics. There's many, many wonderful things to do here every day of the week.
And I'll just quickly add to that. There are lots of folks who find themselves kind of in between, right? So, I really want to make campus life the center of my experience, but I really do want to be able to go to a larger city to enjoy the kind of things that are offered there. And that's one of the things where I think we're ideally located. I'm really excited about the fact that, I can hop in the car and within just a little over an hour, I can be in Philadelphia, or I can be in DC or Baltimore. I do it all the time for my work. I'm traveling to see friends and donors and foundation folks and sometimes prospective families. And it's very easy to get across the bridge into those cities. And so we kind of really are in some ways the best of both worlds.
In October, I took a group of first-year students to downtown Washington for a walk around the monuments and lunch from some of the food trucks there. It was great. And DC is just an hour and a half away. And it's an amazing experience to go to walk around with students in the nation's capital. That's something that's really accessible for our students.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds really fun. And I'll mention this too, just because I don't think it's been mentioned. In terms of on-campus events, our student events board puts on really fun things for students. So for example, they've done bubble soccer where you're running around and playing in that big inflatable ball. They've done things like axe throwing nights. They've done bingo, but with really great prizes, silent disco. So they put on a lot of things for students, and those are free for students to attend. So because of time, just to be respectful of everybody's time tonight, we're going to take our last question now. So our final question is, what advice do you have for us? So this is coming from the students, these incoming freshmen. What advice would you give them?
It's okay to be who you are. You don't have to be someone else to go to college. You don't have to be someone else to succeed in college. Bring us your authentic self. We promise to be authentic. We'll learn together. We'll challenge each other together. And then once you're here, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, I didn't understand, or I think you made a mistake, or we need to talk about this other topic. So this is a learning community where we're all learning together. So my advice to you would be, if that sounds exciting to you, if you want to be an active part of the learning, if you want to shape your own education, if you want to make some really important choices about what you major in, what internships you have, what study abroad opportunities you have, what career you're preparing for, and if you want a bunch of people who are going to find joy in helping you do that, and then giving you sort of a disciplinary foundation with some real skills to translate that into real world outcomes and impact, then just do that. Just bring us your authentic self, and don't be afraid to grow.
I really love that answer because it dovetails beautifully with the kinds of things that I think about too. My advice would be, when you come to Washington College, please be ready to make a difference, because we're the kind of community that welcomes everyone's ideas, and we know that everyone has something important to contribute. So our students aren't just passive recipients of an education. They're actively helping to shape the experience at the college. And some tangible examples of that are the fact that we often invite students to be part of committees or projects that are charged with improving the college and improving on the things that we do here. And so we really care about student voices, and we really want students
That's good advice. Thank you both so much for answering questions and being here with us tonight. I see the fire behind you is starting to die down, so it looks like this was good timing. And then to you all listening, I wanted to thank you for joining us. We hope that you get the chance to come check us out on campus soon. We do have some open houses coming up for some of our admitted students. And then we also have our public visits every weekday. And if you asked a question tonight that we didn't get a chance to answer live, then a reminder, your admissions counselor will be following up with you as long as there's a name associated with that question. And then if you're listening to this and you haven't yet applied to Washington College, there is still time. Our regular decision deadline is coming up on February 15th. So thank you all again so much for joining us and have a great night.
Can we introduce our special guest, Buster?
Absolutely, yes. This is quite a treat for everybody.
Everybody this is Buster. Gus the Goose is our mascot at Washington College, but Buster thinks he's the mascot. He just had to say hi. So, listen,
I love it.
It's been great to be with you all. Thank you so much for joining in this. And if you have any further questions, I know we'll be really happy to hear from you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.